other people come in, we'll just have them come in. Oh, great, Michael's back. Let me just give a little bit of a preamble for those of you who are new. The idea with an Agora seminar is that what I'm doing here today is I'm just facilitating this conversation. I'm not an expert at the text in any way. I've read it many times and I've done seminars on it and been a student in them, but the idea is we're coming to this text together. And what we say is the teacher in the room is the author. And our job is to try to understand what the author is saying as much as we can. And in a way, try to reserve judgment about whether we think it's right or not, spending most of our time deciding, are we getting what's being said? And in a text like this, I would say the caution is it comes from a long ago time in one sense, I mean, in reality, but secondly, it's extremely engaging or provocative or counter to Western feelings. So our first reaction would be, this is crazy, or I can't do this, or something like that. And I would say, let's, if we can, as much as we can, sit with the texts and let it kind of speak to us and try to build on what each other is saying. Now, I may call on Amir a little bit, because I know...
No.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, what I'm going to say is this isn't my culture. I'm approaching it as a student, right? And if somebody has a little bit of knowledge, that is...
But I have a lot of biases.
Okay, well, that's fine. But what I need to say is, if someone has a little bit of knowledge about the background of the text, a little bit is fine. But what we really want to do is stick with what we've all read together. And today that's chapters 1 and 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. That's what we have together in common, and try to reserve outside text as much as possible. Let's see. What I encourage you to do is, I'm really, like, for example, sharing with Michael these links. Please share this with everybody you want. The more, the better. And I encourage you to go to the website, agorafoundation.org, and look at the coming dates, because we're adding many events kind of almost weekly. And we're engaging with professors from St. John's and Thomas Aquinas College to come up with series that will just keep going on. That I think is really fun. And it's interesting that this virus created this opportunity, because our events used to only be on site. And they will be on site again also, but this has been a lot of fun. If you're interested, you might save the date. It's not on the website yet, but it will be hopefully tomorrow. But May 28th from 6 to 7:30 p.m., that's a Thursday, and that's Pacific time, we will have a panel, and that's going to be the future of education after COVID-19. So we'll have a college administrator, our local public school administrator, superintendent rather, a private school administrator, and then someone at a Catholic homeschooling network talking about what's their vision for fall, where is that going. That'll be a moderated conversation and a chance to ask questions. Okay, so getting to this text, you probably know that the Mahabharata, which I'm going to hold here, this big thick thing, this is the abridged version. It's a text that is 10 times longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey combined, just to give you some context. I have not read the whole thing, but the Bhagavad Gita is one piece of that. It's in the middle of that, and that's probably the most famous piece, and that's what we're getting to. But it's one of the treasures of the world, obviously, just as the Iliad and the Odyssey in the Bible are. And so I want to apologize for one thing, which is the link that I put on the website. It has the translator's commentary in between the two chapters, and that is a big no-no. That's not what we do here, and I apologize for that, and it won't happen again. But basically, there's chapter 1, then there's the commentary before chapter 2, and then chapter 2, and I meant to take that out. So
I found that really helpful.
Oh, I know. But see, here's the problem. He has a perspective, and he brings in pieces from Upanishads that he thinks this is what it means. And I have a couple of other translations handy that if somebody has a question about it, we can look at that together. But it's not that important. This is a very accessible translation.
I don't think I got that, Andy.
It was in the PDF. In that same one PDF, it was chapter 1, commentary chapter 2.
Huh. I just had 1 and 2.
It says 2 twice if you look. If you look, you can see it says
pages 83 to 87.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not important. So here's what I'm hoping we could do is in the spirit of a dinner conversation, we'll just have this conversation, try to look for a natural place to come in. I'll ask a question and we could talk about it. And this is a little bit hard because it's not quite the same as being in a room, right? We can't read each other's body language. Somebody's wanting to speak and so on. And if you find yourself talking a lot, find a place to pull back and open up for other people. And if you're not talking much, we want to hear from you, So if you find that you're looking for a place to come in and you are having a hard time coming in, if you look at the bottom of your screen where it says participants, if you click on that, you should see in your lower right-hand corner a raised hand button. And so if you're having a hard time coming into the conversation, you could click on that and I will know you're interested.
Wait, are you talking about reactions?
You should see a little something called raised hand.
It's under reaction.
Yeah.
The thumbs up or a clap or something like that.
That's one, but you should see you should see another one.
You have to put, first you have to hit participant.
Yeah, you have to click on participants.
Oh.
And it's going to open that side window.
Raise hand. It says the words raise hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you do that, I will see that you raise, like Diane, you just raise your hand.
Right. Okay.
And I can see that. And so then what I'll do is I'll just try to find a natural place to bring you in. But yeah, again, if you find yourself coming in to talk and you realize somebody else is speaking or spoke at the same time, yield right away, let them come in and find a good place to come into the conversation. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a chat. Well, I'll just raise my hand.
Okay.
You could always do this, yeah.
So sorry, go ahead. I missed what somebody was saying.
No, that isn't important.
Okay. All right. So here's what I'm hoping we could do. In the translation that we have, if you could go to page 79, I thought here might be a place where we could start. So this is chapter 1, and it's line 24 there, right at the bottom of the page. So try to imagine the scene here. So this is a war between cousins, right? And everybody's aligned on a side. So imagine the biggest war the world's ever seen. So you've got these two sides on a field, and then here's Arjuna, who's now riding up and asks his charioteer, I want you to go between the two armies. I want to see them. So here we are. Thus Arjuna spoke, and Sri Krishna, driving his splendid chariot between the two armies, facing Bhishma and Drona and all the kings of the earth, said, Arjuna, behold, all the Kurus gathered together. That's the family name. And Arjuna, standing between the two armies, saw fathers and grandfathers, teachers, uncles and brothers, sons and grandsons, in-laws and friends. Seeing his kinsmen established in opposition, Arjuna was overcome by sorrow. Despairing, he spoke these words, etc. O Krishna. So, as a way in, I wonder, before we get into Krishna's admonition or whatever you want to say, his response, can we try to understand Arjuna's objections on these two pages now, 80 and 81, and maybe going on to 82? So why doesn't he want to go in?
Okay, because his family is on the other side also. And I mean, it was also the case for my family during the Second World War, that we had members on both sides of the war. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly his case.
Yep, that's definitely a case.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel life will be worth living anymore. There will be no joy in killing his kin.
Right.
It's really striking coming from the Judeo-Christian tradition, because reading the Old Testament, it starts out like this piece, with it starts out like the Old Testament with battles coming and we're all ready. And then all of a sudden, he says, no, this is horrible. I don't want to do this, which really doesn't happen in the Old Testament.
I guess I was thinking about our own Civil War, right? So if you've seen a movie, if you watch a Civil War movie or read a book, you're fighting against neighbors, right? They just happen to live on the other side of the river or something like that. And it changes them from here's just the enemy non-personified to that's my teacher, that's my grandfather on the other side that I'm going to fight against, right? But it seems to me he's saying a couple other things, right? That's definitely one.
Well, I think
go ahead.
what I see is like the Civil War, there was a real issue there that people felt strongly on one side or the other. Whereas here it's just for power and pleasure and worldly goods. And I can't see that life would be worth living just to have that if you don't have the people you love to share it with, or if you've had to kill people you really admire and love.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, there was a lot of power and possessiveness happening in the Civil War too.
Yeah, that's fair. And also, I think this probably both sides feel like this isn't just greed. They think there's some kind of righteousness on their side, I suppose. But it seems to me that is probably the biggest thing. But if you go down on 81, I thought there was a couple of other things. Line 40, when a family declines, ancient traditions are destroyed. This is even going beyond just, I don't want to kill my grandpa. And then it goes down to around at 42. It disrupts the process of spiritual evolution begun by our ancestors.
Yeah.
That's quite a claim, right? I mean, that's really, in other words, you're not just acting in some immediate way. It's got some kind of global consequence, right? Or spiritual consequence. At least that's seems to me that's what Arjuna is worried about.
Mhm.
I like the implication, if the women go, all of society goes. It's like, they're our only hope. So if they fall, we're all screwed.
That's true.
Thank you.
So then it seems to me he on page 82, just to conclude, at line 46, better for me if the sons of, I'm not going to pronounce that, weapons in hand, the enemy, were to attack me in battle and kill me unarmed and unresisting. That would be better. And there's other people who would say that too, right? He's not alone, right? If you think you're doing something wrong, it would be better to be harmed than harming, right?
So is this reflecting a very strong family value in the culture?
Say it more. I didn't quite understand what you meant.
Is this reflecting a very strong family value
Yeah,
in the
I guess,
culture?
yeah.
Mhm.
Sounds like it.
But I also see the futility of war, that what's left and why are we destroying things for whatever the cause is what's to be gained worth the cost.
So maybe we could jump to page 89 now. So we're in section 2. And
Can I ask
please, go ahead.
is he the only one who feels this way? It seems there are no other family members who are standing with him.
I would say that in the rest of the Mahabharata, there's going to be there's going to be so many stories, right? This is just, in a way, this is Arjuna and Krishna's story.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, sure. But this is the most famous story. This is like the little gem that comes out, whole work.
Yeah, I agree with what Suzanne said. I felt this came without much context. Why was he taking this position? And I mean, then as the conversation goes on, where he's talking about destroying society and our spiritual evolution, those were really strong points.
Yeah.
They don't seem to come up when you hear discussions about our Civil War or the infighting that went on in Europe during the war, family against my family in Slovenia. I mean, they were all on different sides. I don't know that anybody had this intellectual discussion about destroying society.
Well, so I guess the issue about context, just to be, I agree with you. The context is, whatever 2,000 pages preceded this piece.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's like families. Go ahead, Mir.
No, I was just going to say one thing. It's ironic that Arjun is portrayed as a very practical man, right? Like he has no intellectual upstanding, and he speaks in this paragraph at least something very deep, right? Very intellectual, rather.
Yeah. You're right. He's a warrior, right? He's the warrior, and the only thing I would, and I support what you're saying. It's that I would imagine he's ready to go to battle, and he makes perfect sense, and he's one of the heroes, right? He's like the Achilles of the story, and then he sees, oh, that, like I said, that's my teacher, that's my cousin right there on the other side, and I think it hit him in a way that he had never thought about before when he saw their faces.
Yeah, and I was really struck by the thing, let's see, it's at the top of 81. We would become sinners by slaying these men, even though they are evil.
Right.
Where, in Western tradition, well, it's our God-given right to stamp out evil.
But yeah, so when you were talking about, let's say, and I don't want to get too far into this, but if you think about World War II, for example, and you see the Nazi posters that were created, the posters of Nazis that the West created, they look like non-people, right? They're portrayed as these monsters in a way, right? And so that makes war easier when you're not killing a person. Of course, I'm saying easy, everybody knows.
Diane, it's almost in the Western society, we also live with all these opposites, right? So although you said, yeah, it seems like it's a God-given right to kill, and but we also say history is written by the victors.
True.
Right.
Barry.
I think I was going to say, Andy, I think it's in this case, what's going to happen is that Krishna will have to help Arjuna set aside the intellectual thought with regard to feeling the humanity of the opposition, because if you're going to win a war, you really can't afford to be thinking about how humane the other person is. You lose if they're not thinking about how bad it would be to kill you, and you're thinking about how bad it would be to kill them, they kill you.
True. Yeah. Well, let's see what his argument is actually on page 89. So Arjuna is sunk into despair, right, at line 10 on page 89. And then I want to read what Krishna says and see what you think about this. Speak sincerely, but your sorrow has no cause. The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. There has never been a time when you and I and the kings gathered here have not existed, nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. As the same person inhabits the body through childhood, youth, and old age, so too at the time of death he attains another body. The wiser are not deluded by these changes. I'll stop there. What do you make of that?
Well, isn't he presenting his argument for reincarnation?
Yes.
Was on?
Yes, that's not a Western concept.
No.
It is, I think, though, a wonderful easing for Arjuna of, it does allow him to go forward and go to war, because everything that's going to happen has already happened. Nobody's really going to die, at least not die permanently. So he's freed to go forward and do war and do it well. I think it's exactly what he would need to have if he was actually going into a war.
But the other side of that coin is that if he viewed people as individuals instead of as categories, the war might be avoided. And okay, sure, I'm ushering you into the next phase of your reincarnation. I don't find that a very comforting resolution.
No, and you could argue, oh, it's a justification, right, to do something that might not be right, because you say, well, I'm not really hurting anybody. But I mean, I'm just trying to sit with Krishna's argument that if we take it the way Krishna's saying it, the wise don't worry about this. So worrying about it is unwise.
Yeah, that's what struck me when Barry talked about the idea of, it was actually just the idea in general that we're used to, that you need to kill the evil people. Like there's a duty. That's not the focus here. The focus is you need to find the one self. Like looking, not just war. Like war is just one of the ways that you need to center yourself and stop worrying about the world of perceptions and attachments. And that's the way that he goes at the argument, which I find way more interesting and convincing than if somebody just said, well, these people are really bad,
No, you're right.
You know, we gotta do our duty.
Pierre,
Hey, well, actually,
oh,
death, life,
too many people are talking at once.
suffering, all of it is a delusion.
Yeah. Let me go to Pierre. His hand's up.
Okay, so basically Krishna is telling Arjuna, hey, life is like a video game. Don't worry.
Sort of.
Right, and
In an odd way, I find parallels in both the East and the West in this respect. I think our reality in any given time is that we find ourselves interdependent and unable to resolve a situation, right? And I think the some of the religions create this independent body called God, which is free from all of these things that we find ourselves in. And that body guides us, right? In the East, what they have created is this independence of your own state, that it's ephemeral, not real, right? So instead of creating a separate body, they're saying you yourself are impermanent. And this, just this way of being, this life, does not have as many consequences as you think it does. But basically, to me, both are born out of despair. Anyway.
Well, just let me, Amir, just if I go to the next paragraph, or if I go to the paragraph, or line 18 on page 90, I think you're right in what you said. I just want to ask you this. Line 18, the body is mortal, but that which dwells in the body is immortal and immeasurable. So we're impermanent and transient, except for there's a part of you that's not.
Correct. Just the body. The soul is impermanent. The Atma.
Michael.
That's just all I was going to point out, was that I was under the impression that, yeah, the soul is eternal and survives the body.
I think that's whatever word you want to say. That's the idea, right? This thing translates and goes on and has always gone on.
I'm still stuck on Arjuna's decision to fight this battle and what Krishna is saying to him. I mean, if there's this progression of the soul through many bodies, is it it seems it's implied that this is Arjuna's destiny in this form of life that he is right now, and he shouldn't fight his destiny?
I think that's going to come on the next page. So let's hold on now just 1 second. But Suzanne, you're going to say.
well, I just on that note, his dharma, that destiny dharma. But actually, is there a difference between the Atman, the immortal or eternal self, and then the jiva, the soul? Is there a difference between the Atman and the soul?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Is the word jiv simply means life. Yeah.
Life. Okay.
Yeah. So you can say anything has life, like even other living beings have life.
Sort of consciousness.
Well,
maybe.
something living. Yeah,
living.
Something
Okay.
living is life. Atma and Paramatma. Atma is the soul we have, then we take different bodies and different life forms. And then the goal is, in the end, you are supposed to merge after taking all of these forms into the Paramatma.
Oh, okay.
That's the goal.
Thank you.
Right. So you would lose that individuality on liberation, right? Okay.
Okay.
So if we could, so it seems to me, if it's okay, just in the thinking about the other arguments, the rest of 90 seems to be continuing to reinforce you were never born and you will never die. That's the bottom of 90. On 91, one abandons worn out clothes and acquires new ones. So that'd be sort of an analogy for your body.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah,
it's interesting when you say you have never changed, you can never change.
Which line? Tell us the line.
It's on 20. So with you were never born, you will never die, but you have never changed. Really, for them, you never change. That's weird.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about that is, I wonder, I'm going to look at this other translation, what that line is, because you do have the ability to improve, right? You can improve your situation. And so you can
improve
change
your body. Improve your body.
No, not your body. The immortal part that goes on.
Oh.
You can let's say have a spiritual practice or something and improve that for the next time. So you can change, but maybe the kernel of it, that immortal thing, does not change. It's there. Let's see. Well, here's what this. Let me say what this says. It is. See, here's where this other translation doesn't use. It's a little different. It is not born. It does not die. Having been, it will never not be. Unborn, enduring, constant, and primordial. It is not killed when the body is killed. I think that's probably a better reading.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So it's not so much worried about you can't change. It's that it's enduring, I guess. We might do this translation next time. So then I wonder if we could go to the next, it seems to me, the next possible argument, which is 92. Somebody has some really nice chimes. Is that you, Joanne?
Yes.
So I'm on line 31. So it seems to me here's another argument why you need to go fight. Considering your dharma, you should not vacillate. For a warrior, nothing is higher than the war against evil. The warrior confronted with such a war should be pleased, Arjuna, for it comes as an open gate to heaven. But if you do not participate in this battle against evil, you will incur sin, violating your dharma and your honor. What do you think? So it seems to me that's not the immortality argument. Now we're on a new argument.
But
Sounds
who
like
gets to
keep
determine-
this book. Sorry.
People and then Joanne. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like we want to keep this great book out of the hands of terrorists, because that's a very, very persuasive argument, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Or
Or out of the hands of the CIA, too.
Joanne, what were you going to say?
Who gets to determine who's the good guys and who's the bad guys? Who defines evil?
Well, I thought
Yeah.
when Anthony was, oh, sorry. I interrupted you, Joanne. Sorry.
Just we all have our own perspectives.
I guess what I thought what Anthony was pointing out was, if I got you right, what's interesting is that if you're called to duty, let's say your country called you to war, for example. Mm-hmm. If I'm getting this passage right, you don't get to decide, they're evil or they're not evil. It's your duty to go, especially if you're like in the army already. You've enlisted and now you're a warrior. I think that's your dharma. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe I'm not getting the argument right. That's how it seems to me.
We have to trust the higher authorities who determine what is evil.
I don't know about that, Andy, because he said, if you do not participate in this battle against evil, you will incur sin. Not if you do not listen to your generals or support your country or do your duty, but participate in the battle against evil.
Well, I was trying to respond to, it sounded like Arjuna in chapter 1 was saying, even though they're evil, we would be sinners and slaying them. So in a way, it makes us evil. At least that's what Arjuna is wondering about.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to make of that. Maybe you're making a good point. Yeah.
As a scientist, I often find these arguments very, very contradictory. Because at one level, you see that there is a great emphasis on your individual role in the collective, as if you cannot exist without the collective. Your place in society matters tremendously. And at the same time, the argument is for your independence of soul, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, you are not related to any of these things, the worldly material world. That whatever you do has no consequence.
I would argue that's not a contradiction. For example, it's not a contradiction in Marx, who wants individual freedom and collective. So I don't think you can't have both at the same time, collective consciousness and personal.
Let's say how.
How? Well, that's a whole book, right?
Well, Amir, wouldn't you say, if I'm under, I mean, maybe we're going outside the text a little bit, but if someone is born into their dharma, right? In other words, they have a job to do, or a class, or whatever you want to say, and it's their job to do their job well. That's what their role is. Then that is individual in a way, but it's not. It doesn't act autonomously from the society, because the society is going to manifest their activity, right?
Well, I don't call that independent, because to me, independence is like no dependence. I have to have autonomy over my destiny.
Well, that's what I want too. But go ahead, somebody. Oh, I thought I heard voice.
Well, I had a general question. Is this Bhagavad Gita one of the foundational documents then in Indian society, like, you know, the
Absolutely.
Bible sort of underlies, you know, Western society? And then how does this play into like the caste system and, you know?
There's before this, there's the Vedas. So there are other texts like that, and that does get all set out. But so it is there, it's present here. But just to give you an example, the Bhagavad Gita, Gandhi kept a book on his nightstand, and he said it was his most important text. So it's critical to Indian culture. Amir, tell me if I'm not right.
No, it is what, like you said, Vedas, Upanishads, and, you know, Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the chapter we're going to be next.
In this sense where we're talking about, do you act in this life because, you know, you're going to be reborn? So how does that interrelate with the caste system or keeping society?
Well, in my opinion, it's like the foundation of it.
You're born into your caste.
Yeah.
And
So
is that
just
your
like
dharma?
fate. Yeah, the whole
Dharma.
question of fate is so crucial, which we strangely also find in the old Greek culture, right?
That's true.
You cannot do anything other than what your fate, the gods have set for you.
And also,
Even if you try, you're unsuccessful.
reincarnation is in Plato. So it's very clearly in Plato, and he even thinks learning is recollection, right? So it's, yeah, Joanne.
So does dharma mean duty or destiny?
Well, neither actually. Dharma is dharma, which is the same word. It means your sort of religious, I guess the only obligation, yeah. That's the only close thing we come to in English, duty or obligation.
At least this translator, he translates it as the law that expresses and maintains the unity of creation.
Wow.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, no, like, oh, great, got it.
So it's kind of, it's your part of the game that you're playing in order to keep the whole thing together. But don't worry, it's just a game, because if you die, you're opening the gate to heaven for those you kill, right?
Does it really, I mean, to me, it's always sounded so silly, because can you say something so deep to somebody and say, don't worry? It doesn't work like that in our lives, does it?
Maybe it does. You don't know yet, right? You haven't gone through the gate to heaven, apparently.
I don't know.
I guess one way you could read it is to say, you're being confronted with something that's very challenging for you. And if you have a view that's more eternal than the present moment, it changes how you see, how you might act in the moment, right? So, for example, you might fear for your life in the moment, but you realize, is it worth compromising your credibility or something, or your value to save your life? You know that.
But in that case, it's the present, right? It's your values that you're compromising. But if you are doing it because you will be rewarded in heaven, or you're going to take another form, or heaven, that's something you don't know, except for what you have been taught.
True.
And the other contradiction I find here is this conditioning contradiction, right? Like, senses are so derided upon that if you indulge in senses, that's just conditioning you are indulging in, correct? Later on, he talks about, like, okay, this is all, you have to find a middle ground between pleasure and pain. And yet, all of this stuff is what? That's all conditioning to me.
Well,
there's a difference between conditioning and dharma then.
I think
the conditioning of the senses that he talks about somehow is different from this conditioning, which you also have just learned, right? Because how do you know all of this stuff?
let's get to that, because it seems to me that's one argument, right? Is to be like you could be like a turtle, and suck yourself in and go away from your senses.
Well, on page 97, line 70,
Okay.
it says, as rivers flow into the ocean but cannot make the vast ocean overflow, so flow the streams of the sense world into the sea of peace, that is the sage. So he's not saying ignore the world of the senses, which I think is the reading some people sometimes get from this. He's saying the person who's self-centered or self-balanced or finds the eternal self, however you want to put it, is perceiving as much as anyone else and sensing as much as anyone else, but he's not letting it overwhelm them.
Yeah, he's not attached to it.
Right.
So before that, though, I wonder, could we go to 93? I was wondering if this is a different kind of an argument. As we've said, there's your dharma, and there's opening the door to heaven. Even death is a victory in that sense. But then I was like line 39 on page 93. You've heard the intellectual explanation. Now listen to the principles of yoga. By practicing these, and by the way, as we go on, it's going to get very articulated, the yogas. By practicing these, you can break through the bonds of karma. On this path, effort never goes to waste, and there is no failure. Even a little effort towards spiritual awareness will protect you from the greatest fear. And I'll read the next paragraph, that's okay. Those who follow the path resolve deep within themselves to seek me alone, attain singleness of purpose. For those who lack resolution, the decisions of life are many-branched and endless. That seems a little different than...
Okay, and it's me, Krishna? They're seeking me because all of a sudden it's like we've got this God concept or something. Who's me?
Not all of a sudden. It's there, right? So there's the single God manifested in many ways, but yeah, Krishna's the God here. So you would, in all of your activity, you would seek God alone. What do you think?
You're supposed to have all this effort, but not be attached to the outcome.
That's coming.
Just like yoga.
Next argument. I guess what I thought is you're basically also acting in a way that you're trying to break through the bonds of karma.
Well, the thing that came to my mind is if you're a master of this ability, to balance your emotions. So when somebody dies, you're just like matter of fact about it. That's a most evolved person who just says, "Yep, that's life. We die."
If you acted rightly with the right intention, I think maybe. Well, I mean, that's what I think that's the case that's being made.
The challenge of the senses is in the point of having a life and being challenged by the senses is to master the senses, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then that evolution, does it get you a better life in the next time around? Is that how karma works?
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole game, right? The game is to have, and I don't like this word, but I don't see any other word in English, detachment, in a way, which is also in Buddhism, the same concept. And you're supposed to do good, but be detached. And somehow being that way gets you to the next ladder towards the Paramatma, right? So in next life form, you're supposedly born in a higher caste.
Ah.
Right.
That's the goal.
So that's the
caste.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Michael.
I just wanted to point out that in that last passage you read, for those who lack resolution, the decisions of life are many-branched and endless. What's that? Oh, hi. Aw. I was just saying that it's almost like a bit of strategy because right now he's debating more than one option. And so this is another entreaty to get back to single purpose, so you can avoid having to make decisions. If you get to the essence, you will be single-minded of purpose, and that's, in this case, war.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good, I think you're saying it.
I think Arjuna has a definite advantage too, in that his charioteer is Krishna.
Yeah.
So he can be fairly certain he's going the right direction.
If we could all be so lucky as to have the right, companion.
That's a great
That's a good point.
So
I think we've heard from everybody, but is it Fabiola? I'd like to hear from Fabiola.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I want to say anything because I've been kind of studying a lot of it. So I feel like like you said, I have a lot of background on it, not really fresh to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But does the conversation strike you as being on track, at least, to what you've read? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Pierre.
Yeah, so for Krishna, there is just only one goal of life, which is to, on line 40, is to reach spiritual awareness. That's what life is all about for him.
I mean, I don't know, when you say only, I don't see the word only, but that sounds like definitely a very important thing, if not the most important.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to line 41, that's what it says.
41 or 40?
Yeah, well, 40, so you understand what it is after. On 41, it is what it says.
Uh-huh. I mean, that would be fine with me.
That's your only goal in life?
Well, I mean, what else should there be? I guess what else do you think Krishna would say, or what? How does that not ring for you right?
But isn't it remarkably different from Socrates' goal?
No, I wouldn't say it is.
Well, I mean, to live a considered life is different than to live a life with spiritual awareness, because you're not concocting an entire world.
I guess wouldn't both of them say what you're trying to find out is what's the truth of things?
Right. Somebody wanted to say something.
Joanne, yeah.
When you talk about having Krishna in your own chariot, wouldn't that be nice? How is that different from all of us having a conscience or the Holy Spirit or God's presence or whatever you want to call it as our own moral compass or our guide in making decisions about what's spiritually the most propitious thing to do?
I think Barry's point was the Holy Spirit might not speak so clearly.
That's right.
Let's ask Pierre.
The conscience might not either.
And also,
I'm just curious, what does Pierre think? What is his goal besides spiritual awareness?
I want Pierre to read the news with his little background there. Keep expecting him to give us the latest updates on the coronavirus.
I want him to read all my audiobooks.
Well, let me just, before we run out of time, it seems to me Joanne pointed us to this passage on 94, and that is line 47. And so I wonder if this is actually another kind of a way to be, and maybe it's a yoga or, and 47, you have the right to work, but never to the fruit of work. You should never engage in action. And by the way, you guys who have been here with us, you should hear Confucius in here too. He says something very similar. You should never engage in action for the sake of reward, nor should you long for inaction. Be formed in this world, Arjuna, as a man established within himself, without selfish attachments, and alike in success and defeat. For yoga is perfect evenness of mind.
Yeah. There's a lot of Confucius in here.
Yeah, makes sense.
But there's a lot of Judeo-Christian ethic to meet here too.
I think there is.
Right? But on the other hand, I mean, it seems like it's not that whether we have the right or we don't have the right. The fact is that we're not in a position as human beings to ask for things. So it's born out of despair, more out of like creating this whole philosophy that whether you have the right or you don't, or you'll be rewarded later or whatever, It's born out of the fact that we just don't have a say in this as human beings. Whatever we do, we don't have a say in the end of it, right?
Right?
Well,
We're not in the garden anymore, right?
Listening to what Andy just read brought me to the previous page, 93, the last line.
Yeah.
Those whose minds are swept away by the pursuit of pleasure and power are incapable of following the supreme goal and will not attain samadhi. And that's the first time I think that word samadhi was introduced, which I looked it up. It said intense concentration achieved in meditation, transcendence. And the way that ties to me to the quote you read is when you're totally engaged in something, you're not caring what the outcome will be. You know, like if you're totally engaged in your work, you're doing it because you love it.
Yeah.
And if samadhi is the goal, he suggests, then when we're doing something that we're totally engaged in, we're doing our purpose.
Yeah.
That's what we call flow state.
Yeah, being in a flow.
Yeah, in the flow.
And
I would have to be told that, right? If you are in the flow, you're not seeking a reward. You don't have to be told that.
Right.
Right.
Anthony, what were you going to say?
I would say the sense that we do have a say, following up on that, is to respond to it, as he says, with the perfect evenness of mind. Right? That is our say, the way that we interact with it.
I've used this example with some of you before. When I used to do the Earth Day Festival in Ojai, you know, it's this huge thing and there'd be like 2,000 people and all that kind of stuff. And the first few times I did it, I was really stressed out about it being successful or getting enough people there. And then I think I must have done a seminar or two on the Bhagavad Gita, and I was thinking a lot about it. And I thought, oh, my job is to do the best job I can in planning this event. You know, and that's like, is everything ordered? Is it all set up? Did I market it correctly? But after that, it's not my business. That's really hard. It's not a typical place for us to be in, right? Because usually we think, well, what matters is the outcome.
But that's your ego.
I mean, that's
Ego cage.
Yeah, but that seems like that's the Western way of being.
You created the environment for people to have a good time. It was up to them to have a good time. And isn't that what this is all about?
Yeah,
the environment, and you're responsible for making it happen.
I guess I was thinking, let me use a more pointed example that I've used before. You are going to open a restaurant. And it's basically your job is to make the best restaurant you possibly can. But it being successful or not isn't actually your business. Right?
Well, because you can never please all the people. I mean, there are going to be people who like it and people who don't like it. So you can't take responsibility for the whole world. And that's kind of what they're saying here is you have to do your thing and do your role properly.
I hear what you're saying, but it seems to me it's more radical than that. I don't think it's saying, well, you can't please everybody, so just do your best. I think it means if the restaurant closes, it's not a failure. Your job is to do your best. That's what I mean. That's why it's difficult for Westerners to take this to heart, I would say.
So did your restaurant fail, Andy?
No. Well, I didn't open a restaurant.
It's the definition of failure.
Relates to the point, like sometimes we learn our best lessons with things that fail. You know, it wasn't supposed to be successful, but you can learn from that to move on.
No, that's good. That's great.
So when you read the passage of line 47 on page 94, although I feel like I have some idea of the concept, when you finish reading it, the first thought that came to my mind is it's like being an automaton. It didn't seem appealing to me personally, even though I am a spiritual seeker, you know, and I, to the extent that I'm able, you know, look to surrender, and yet this seems very unappealing to me.
Yeah. No, just to support you, there's a whole movement in Western philosophy people like Nietzsche and other people like that would say, this is exactly what you don't want to do, is not care. The best thing you could do is care.
Mm-hmm.
Or the best thing you could do is have a will, right? So you're not,
Right.
I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it's true. It's normal. It's a very normal reaction to say, I don't know that this is how I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially for us.
Yeah.
Andy, use the example of teaching. You can be the best teacher. You can stand. You can facilitate the best. But how the person receives it and learns is a lot of the responsibility of the learner. How much effort they put in, how much time they put in, how hard they work at it, how they study. It's not so. It can't be. You can't. And there are some teachers that the students love, and it just varies.
I know, I hear what you're saying, but again, I want to press you a tiny bit. Imagine you're a teacher and you say, I'm going to do my very best teaching this lesson, right, or whatever it is. And you say, well, do you care about whether or not you'll get fired or not by doing a good job, or whether the students get it or not? And you say, my job is just to do my best. The rest is not up to me.
But also, Andy, if I give them all the tools to learn, I give them all the best experience, I give them all the different ways of learning, and they're not willing to study it, what can you do?
Well, no, nothing probably, but here's what I mean to say. Like, let's say the students are bad, and then they give you all these bad reviews on ratemyprofessor.com, and you get fired, and then your boss says, sorry, you just got all these bad reviews, and you say, well, I did my best. And then you walk away with a good
Well, here would be my argument, is that you were in the wrong environment. You have to go find the right environment for your skills. And it's your responsibility to find that environment.
You're being very
I think we're missing the point here. The key word is the reward. So it isn't necessarily, to me, about doing our best even, or to be attached to a reward. It's the fact whether you enjoy what you do.
Right.
If you enjoy what you do, that's goal enough.
I agree. I think
also,
that's being said.
If you enjoy what you do while you're doing it.
For enjoying your reward. And if you're in the right environment, you can succeed. If you're in the wrong environment, no matter what you do, you'll never succeed or feel good about it.
That's not about it, right? I mean, let's say you enjoy singing and you're a really bad singer. It doesn't matter. You're never going to succeed whether people in a culture think that you have a great voice or not.
You're right.
You will always enjoy singing.
Michael is trying to come in. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying that it's less. It's all this goes back to result orientation, and the key is to get out of goal thinking, results, and throw yourself into the process of whatever art or skill you're doing. So and results, being consumed or preoccupied with results, all stem from desire. So if you can stop desiring, stop looking in the past, stop looking into the future, and just focus on the present, you'll stand a better chance of the result being what the result should be, given the effort, without any dependence on you needing a certain outcome.
Yeah, I think that's what it's saying. Joanne?
I have a slight thing. I know, Michael, you said pretty much everything that I was thinking, but one thing often is linked to this, which I have objection over, this desire business, right? Because actually wanting to do something that you really like to do is also desire.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't necessarily...
That's a great point. Yeah.
Reward, desire shouldn't be condemned as such. It's just like the fact of the matter is, even if you get attached to results and whatever, it's not going to lead anywhere anyway.
Yeah, you'll eventually burn yourself out that way, so you'll learn.
Well, we have a lot of abilities.
There is a beauty and something in doing something for its own sake, right? I mean, Socrates has said that so many times. So, anyway.
Joanne was trying to come in.
Well, like he was just saying, the difference for me is between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Mm-hmm. If you're doing something to make a lot of money or to get accolades or pleasure or whatever, those can come or go, and you don't always have control over it. But if you have intrinsic motivation and you're doing it just for the sake of doing it because it's what you're meant to do, and you are in that flow or play state or whatever you want to call it, then the rewards are there, and they're not tangible rewards, but they're more rewarding than things that come from the outside.
Yeah. Diane was going to say something a long time ago and we stopped her. Diane, did you want to say it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm still troubled about this relationship with the caste system and how that relates to this evolution, the spiritual evolution. Like in the Indian caste system, do they just look at somebody who's at the top of society, is more evolved, or can you be in a lower caste but yet be a very evolved soul?
You can do your job. I mean, there's going to be a line in here that's very controversial, but it basically, whatever your dharma is, you should do it to the best of your ability. Even if basically it's going to say the line, I'll just jump ahead and say the line something like this: it's better to do your dharma poorly than someone else's dharma well. Right?
But the key is, how do you find your dharma?
You're born into it. You already know it. Like you're born into your caste.
So wait, I saw Amir shaking his head. So if you're of the lowest caste, you cannot be an evolved, highly evolved spirit in samadhi? I mean, I think you could.
You could do your best.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could meditate, you could do all this stuff, but you will still have to climb those rungs.
Yeah.
Right? So this is just my understanding. I'm not representing anything or anybody. Okay?
Right.
Let's be clear. So of course there is a possibility that in any form you have taken in life, there is always this possibility that you could become evolved and go directly, transcend everything, all the forms, like the Buddha did, let's say.
Right.
Transcend all forms and merge into the Paramatma, right? That's possible, but very difficult. And because if you do good, you're going to be then born in a better caste, in a better position, until you're able to.
Hey, just with our last 2 minutes, we touched on it, but just to say, the end of the chapter talks about senses, and they're on line 58, page 96. Even as the tortoise draws in its limbs, the wise can draw in their senses at will. The cravings will disappear when they see the highest goal. So, I mean, I know we touched on it, but just say, this seems like that's something really important about what Krishna is trying to tell us. And then maybe I'll just read line 64. But I'll go a little above. Lost is the power to choose between what is wise and what is unwise, and your life is an utter waste. But when you move amidst the world of sense, free from attachment and aversion alike, so attachment and aversion alike, so that's important, there comes the peace in which all sorrows end, and you live in the wisdom of the self. So attachment and aversion alike.
Pierre has his hand up, but I'll be curious, Andy, to see the other translation.
Sure, but Pierre, go ahead real quick.
So they all come back to line 51.
Yeah.
51, the wise unify their consciousness and abandon attachment to the fruits of action, which bind a person to continual rebirth. So they try to get free of rebirth.
Yeah.
And they attain a state of beyond all evil. When you don't have to be reborn, you don't have evil anymore.
Okay. So that's nirvana, right?
Yeah.
See, I'm trying to find it. Hold on.
51, line 51.
Oh, no, not that one. What Amir asked me to find. Okay.
The aversion part, that doesn't sound right to me.
Okay. I'll start with the tortoise. Oh, let's see. I'll go a little further down. Sensuous objects fade when the embodied self abstains from food. The taste lingers, but it too fades in vision of higher truth. Even when a man of wisdom tries to control them, Arjuna, the bewildering senses attack his mind with violence. Controlling them all with discipline, he should focus on me. With his sense, when his senses are under control, his insight is true. brooding about sensuous objects makes attachment to them grow, and from attachment, desires arise. From desire, anger is born. Sounds like Yoda. From anger comes confusion. From confusion, memory lapse. And so
the
yeah,
whole thing sounds like George Lucas to me.
It does, but yeah, you're right, Amir. It didn't quite have a version there, right? Exactly. Anyway, I don't want to keep you beyond what we said, but let's maybe I'll give us the other translation. I'll put it on the website, and if I don't have your email, please give it to me if you want to be on the list. And then it'll be the 28th of May at the same time.
Every 2 weeks?
Yeah, every 2 weeks. So we're doing every other Thursday. We'll go through the Bhagavad Gita and then go to the Upanishads, and then every other Monday evening we're doing the Foundations of Our Republic, and everything's on the website on the coming events page. So that next meeting on the Foundations is Monday evening, and that's Federalist Papers 70 and 78, which will be our last two.
Andy, are you going to keep going through August? Because I'm back for a month in August.
Yep.
Be in person.
We'll as long as I keep getting funded, we'll keep going on for all eternity.
All right.
How are you?
Life.
How are you getting funded?
So, how we get funded is we have people who subscribe who come to the one day, the normal seminars that we do on Saturdays typically, and we're a nonprofit, so we write grants. That's a big part of my job as a grant writer, and then we have a very nice group of people who donate to what we're doing here. So it's all of those things together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Andy, are you considering, let's say in a month or so, meeting in person or?
Yes. Well, as soon as we're allowed,
okay.
What we'll do is we'll do both. So we'll continue these completely, and
okay.
I hope we get this grant, but the largest grant we've ever tried for, I hope we will get. And if we do get it, it'll be a subscription for 200 LA County teachers to come to online seminars. And what'll happen is you'll see these sort of double and quadruple, and you don't have to come to them all. You just come to what you want to. But we'll see a lot more people coming, and you might see an offering that has 2 or 3 renditions of the offering. So we'll have online, and then we'll have the on-site ones just as we had.
Is it possible, and I don't know if it's practical, but to think of a simultaneous one?
Yeah, I thought of that. Yeah.
In person and online.
We can. In our office, we have a really fantastic, you've been in the room before, that big screen. It works so wonderfully for Zoom meetings because we have the microphones that work really well. You could hear the whole room and all that. And everybody on this, we could see everybody and they could see us, but the room only seats about 14 max. So if we could use that room for a smaller one, or maybe we need to build out the bigger room, but both would be really nice because we're having people come, as we see here, from all over the world or all over the country. And it's really nice. It's great.
Andy, I have a question. This May 28th education thing you're doing. I have some teacher friends in LA who might be interested. What do you charge just for a one-off on an online?
That one's free.
Oh, it's free. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Andy,
what day is that? I have a bunch of professor friends too. May 28th?
Yeah, it'll be on the website and you'll see the link. I'm just waiting for one confirmation, but it'll be Thursday evening, May 28th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. And so there's going to be these panelists. It'll be moderated, and then there'll be a chance people can write in their questions, and then I'll bet. I'm not moderating this one, but somebody else is, and I'll bet the questions to the moderator. But basically, let me give you an example of what will be talked about. This you might have read the California system of colleges is going to go primarily online in the fall. So we'll have the director of Channel Islands University as one of the panelists to talk about what do they think about it. If things change, will they go to on-site, or how will that work? Those kinds of, it'll be a really practical thing to think about. What's the future look like? I mean, the immediate future, fall. So I think
I'm teaching a lot online here to my English students.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the future. I mean, they do not respond as well to the online experience as to the in-person.
I know students that are saying, if my school goes online next year, I'm not going.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot
especially
is
for the
lost
young
when they're not in that classroom.
Say that again.
A lot is lost when they're not in the classroom.
No, I agree.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I said I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy, have you applied for Ojai Women's Fund grant funding?
Yeah, we're going to. And also, we're getting, there's a lot of people that are in the Women's Fund that are becoming, subscribers and things like that. So we think we applied last year also, but we didn't get it, but we'll apply again. I saw the announcement. Yeah, we'll go for it.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It was good. Yeah.
Time to go to bed.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Anthony,
Uh-huh.
thanks everyone. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
very much.
Andy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Bye, Viola.
Thank you,
Good
guys.
to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.